Panelists chat. I usually host them. I moderate the challenges chat sessions. It's a community event, no cost to participate. We have very good professionals, experts giving their expertise to the community. As you can see, it's recorded. We usually get some TV stations coming in too. We have TV Asia today. Anjali, thank you for joining us. And the topic today is what next, and combating burglaries or thefts in our communities. This is a part 2 of our first session, which was back in December of 2018. District Attorney joined us, and he called us half an hour ago that he's still stuck in traffic. So we do have Brittany, who is representing District Attorney's office. And I'll tell you the agenda for today. And you all can hear me, right?
Yes.
I knew I sounded much louder. The agenda for today is we're going to have Sheriff Freeman come and give opening comments for today's session. I'm going to ask a few questions of some of our panelists today, and we'll briefly introduce them as I sit down. And then after a few question and answers, you will get an opportunity to ask them questions as well towards the end, probably around 6. And if the district attorney can make it on time by 5:15, definitely he will be joining us as well. So thank you again. We do have chai, and you do have pakoras. Thanks to Sri Krishna Vilas. And Krishna, can you just wave your hand? It looks like this restaurant was named after him. He's Satish's son. I think Satish is inside. So thank you, Krishna, for offering us this space for the meeting, important meeting today. And so going from my immediate right, or my right, we have Larry DeBias, who is the Johns Creek Community Association board member. So thank you so much, because I think we're going to use a lot of community, the word community today. And we do have our our major Byers, Christopher Byers from Johns Creek Police Department. And the chief was going to join, but I guess the chief became the county manager.
He is now the city manager.
He's now the city manager.
Wow.
He's now the city manager. Thank you. We have Dr. Jyoti Sharma. Dr. Jyoti, you can sit back, relax. Okay, but she's going to talk to us about how the burglary has impacted her life from the past. And of course, we have the City of Cumming Police Department Chief, and David Marsh. Thank you so much for joining us. And we do have specific Cumming residents here, so they have a lot of questions for us as well. To my immediate left, of course, is Brittany, and Brittany is representing our District Attorney's Office for Fulton County, who was very much involved in the first meeting. And you are the chief of staff or the executive? You can use the mic.
I'm the Deputy Chief of Staff and the Director of Criminal Justice Policy and Programs.
Very nice, thank you. We have one among us who every day talks about or supervises property crime and the new technology crimes that goes on in across the Forsyth County. And Sheriff Freeman thought you would be the best person to give us the best knowledge today. So thank you, Sergeant Blythe, for joining us today. We have Neeru, and Neeru is going to tell us recently how hard it has been for her family, because they were burglarized as well recently. And she did share with me a video, and it can be, but I'll make sure you all get it when you get the follow-up email. And of course, we have Miham. Did I get that right? Mahim. I've been getting that name wrong, but Mahim Verma. Thank you for joining us. And you are the executive president, and he's the corporate executive at Talent Quest.
Yes.
Okay. Very nice. And you can use your mic, each of you. And we're going to start with a question for the audience. And who gets it right gets a gift, right? I already see a hand up. What is the difference between burglary and robbery? No, you. Deb, you're always in the field. Anil ji, okay, I see a kid raising hand. Let's try it out with, go ahead. Do you want to get up? Okay. Do you want to just, you can't hear, yes.
Burglaries when they have a weapon and robberies when they don't have a weapon? Or it might be the other way around.
It's the other way around. Do you think he gets it?
Yeah.
Awesome. So robbery is you with violence or force, right? And burglary is, of course, in a constrained four walls, but then there's no violence or force. Probably you're not at home or in the building. So Swapna, thank you so much. He gets a gift. And we didn't get your name, though. We didn't get your name. Aman? Aman, thank you so much for joining us, Aman. So we would like to have Sheriff Freeman, first of all, we want to thank you for respecting and bringing yourself here, respecting all of us for your time. So we thank you and we respect you back. We see your name all over, which is good. I know in politics you see the name all over, it's like, wait, what? So we want to thank you for all that you do for the Forsyth County. We are in Forsyth County now, and we want to, I think what you've done is you are heading to the next level, so we appreciate you and your team. If you can give us the opening comments before we start, that'll be great. Can we just...
Welcome to Forsyth County. I wish we weren't here having this discussion, but we are. Look, we have worked our tails off trying to work with our Indian community and our broader Asian community, and particularly with the fact that we have had groups who are targeting our Indian and broader Asian community for particularly burglaries, exactly what we're here talking about. Some of you have been there. I had a meeting just this past Thursday with about 20 who I will call influencers in the Indian community, leaders within the Indian community. And we were talking about actually another subject, but obviously the burglaries came up. I was in St. Marlow the other day, a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about that. Settlers Lake, which is a subdivision on McGinnis Ferry, very close to our friends in Johns Creek. I'm sorry? Okay. Right. So 2 Sundays ago, we had 3, correct, Sergeant Blush?
Yes.
We had 3 burglaries in there, and we believe this to be the same coordinated group that are gang-related, which is, again, a lot of crime that we see. These are generally Central American, potentially Colombian. Sometimes they may be Dominican, and other nationalities as well. And they are targeting our broader Asian community specifically for, because it's what they're stealing, money, jewelry. Okay? I know it is a stereotype that the Asian community in broad sense has more money and more jewelry than anybody else. But unfortunately, in some cases, statistically, that number is somewhat higher. These individuals have learned that, and they're targeting that community for that reason. If you knew what we have done, first of all, let me give a kudos to Johns Creek Police Department. We work really closely with Johns Creek. We have a joint drug task force. Them and Alpharetta are probably 2 of our best partners. And when I say that, I mean nothing from the city of Cumming is within Forsyth County. So, of course, and Chief Marsh used to work for Forsyth County Sheriff's Office and is the new chief, and honestly, the best relationship we've ever had with the city of Cumming Police Department. So they're on task as well. Johns Creek has been a great partner with us as we try to catch these guys. Over the past month, we had a 23-person task force from the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office working 40 hours a week, in addition to all our patrol deputies doing nothing but trying to combat these burglaries. Now think about that for a minute. 23 deputies working 10-hour days, 4 days a week. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in overtime trying to catch these guys. There are more than one group. I wish I could tell you there was not, but there's more than one group out there. 2 weeks ago, Settlers Lake, 3 burglaries. Last night, Settlers Lake, 2 burglaries. By the way, we caught them this time. 4 of them are in jail. We caught all 4 individuals in the act trying to escape. We have a plethora of evidence that we have to go through. We're still trying to determine their true identities. They've given us some. There's a lot of aliases. One individual we believe was here and probably in Johns Creek as long as a year ago We tracked him out towards the West Coast and lost him, but he's back again. Remember I told you this is an organized group. Back here in Forsyth County again, and literally a baseball throw from the city of Johns Creek, doing it again. This time he's in jail, and by the way, he's in jail with no bond. All 4 of them have no bond. I'm going to do my best to keep them there. Make no bones about that. I will do my best. I've already spoken with our prosecutors before this ever happened. They know what we've been dealing with, and they have assured me that they will seek harsh penalties for this. This is not a catch and release. These people will answer. We have to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in a jury. They have a right to have a jury trial. They have a right to present evidence, all those things that every person would want to have. But if they are found guilty by a jury of their peers, they will face some harsh punishment in Forsyth County. So for our victims here, I get it. I've actually been a theft victim myself. I've never had my home burglarized. I've talked to hundreds and hundreds over my 32-year career of victims, and I know it hits you to your core, because every time now that you walk in your house, you got just that little bit of, has somebody been in my house? Probably feel that way a little bit. I know Sergeant Marsh, I know Major has done the same thing. We've talked to probably collectively thousands of victims over our careers. They're in jail. The main group that's been hitting us that we can go back a year ago, they're in jail. That does not mean there will not be another burglary of an Indian home or an Asian home, but the group that is really active in Forsyth County and likely Johns Creek, likely Alpharetta, they're in jail right now. That's the great news that I got to tell you. I did not come here, was not expecting to come here and go, hey guys, they're in jail, we caught them. This happened at 8:30 last night.
Wow.
Okay? I was out with them till about 12:30 last night. And they were out till, I don't know, I got a text at like 2:30 this morning. They were still working on it. And as soon as Sergeant Blyce leaves here, he's headed back to his office and he's going to work on it. And I'll end with this. I brought Sergeant Blyce instead of me. I know I'm the one talking right now. He is the expert. You have been working on these cases for 4 years? For 4 years. We have tracked these groups to Maryland, to Texas, to Colorado, and states in between. Most likely they will. There's a lot of evidence that we have with these 4 that we have to work, and we're going to be working with all of our partner agencies. We're already working with the FBI. We're working with Homeland Security to do everything we can to start matching up to see if we can match up some kind of evidence that would point to your home, some kind of evidence that would point that they were in Cobb, those kind of things. So our eyes are wide open. We're not just looking at the 2 burglaries or the 5 burglaries that we had in Settlers Lake, right? We're looking at what have these guys done across the state of Georgia and across the nation, because it's not just Settlers Lake that these guys have done. So yes, ma'am, we are working really hard on that. 4 years he has been working on this. He is a walking encyclopedia of what happens in this and knows it. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting us and giving us the time. I told you we were working on it. If you live here in Forsyth County, and I see some friends here that know me already, you know that we have been telling you we are working on this, and we will not give up until we catch them. We've caught them, and we still haven't given up because there's going to be some more after them. So we're not going to let our guard down one bit, and I know our friends in Johns Creek and the city coming are going to be right there by our sides, or we'll be right there by their sides as we go along. So good news for today. I'm glad I got to say this because I wasn't expecting to be able to say it. But I hope we can ease a little of your concerns and make you feel a little bit better, a little bit safer when you walk in your own house, because you deserve that, okay?
Thank
Both
you.
of you guys. All
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much for the words of wisdom. And the first set of questions are general questions just for the warm-up, and then we'll go into the real questions. The first question I have for you, Larry, and we'll make this answer short before we get to the real questions. So Larry, what is your greatest fear, and how do you manage fear in general? If you can use the mic, make sure it's on though. Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Yes.
What's my greatest fear, and how do I manage it? That's an open-ended question. As it relates to where we are tonight, I believe that the greatest fear is that we, as a community, as a diverse population within the community, we actually sort of go into our own little group of people that we know each other and sort of can feel comfortable with each other and talk about things together. That is my fear, because in order to solve the problem, we all have to be involved with the solution, not just the Indian or the South Asian community, but it's the Americans. It's everyone within Johns Creek, within Forsyth County, within Roswell. All the areas have to come together and share information. And the best way that I personally want to deal with this is to give back and be at places like this so that we can actually, share the information, and whatever I learned from speaking to 100 different people, maybe I can have one little nugget that I can share with you, and you could take it with you. And at that point, maybe someone else is better off from that.
Thank you so much. Major Byers, who's someone you admire and respect, and why? If you can switch on your mic.
Yeah, I think I'm on here.
Okay.
Check. Man, I was kind of prepped for the fear question, but so I'll give the political answer. The last 13 years, I've had a great, the privilege of working under Ed Dinsmore as my chief, and now as the city manager. It is going to be a great thing for the city of Johns Creek. He has done an amazing thing with our police department, the partnerships that he has established with, as Sheriff Freeman talked about, and all the other agencies. And now to be able to continue that legacy on for the entire city of Johns Creek and all the departments within Johns Creek. I've learned so much from him over the last 13 years, and it's been a real privilege.
So I did my CAPS. I graduated CAPS as well, and I've always seen him as this composed, balanced person, and not like, oh my gosh, what? So that's really nice.
Yes, he is very. One of the things that I've learned the most from him over those years is, when something happens, good news, bad news, he doesn't overreact. He always takes it all in, and I'm much more of a knee-jerk kind of reactor. So I have learned that from Chief Dinsmore over the last time. So it's been a real great privilege to work under him.
Sure, thank you. Jyoti, if there's one thing you could change in this world, what would it be?
Now, this is not related to the discussion.
It can.
But
No, this is to know you.
I think
you.
if there's one thing I would change in this world, I would end child labor. That's one thing that's very dear to me. I think it's just wrong to rob any child of their childhood. And if collectively as adults of the, global citizens of this planet, anything we can do to stop that, I would like to participate in that.
So you want to eliminate child labor?
Yes.
I wonder why that mic is not working, so let's see.
I think this was just
Okay, so we have the question. Do you want to try it? Maybe it's working.
Check.
Sure, so it's working? Yeah. So, Chief Marsh, the question for you is, what surprised you most in your career? And how did you encounter anything that was really a surprise?
Probably what surprises me most in my career is how, in times of great stress, we have regular people who are willing to help their neighbors out. I saw that in effect typically, or in generally, with the courthouse shooting that we had I guess it's about 10 years ago now. And to see how our community came together to help each other out, that was a fairly traumatic experience for tons and tons of people that were in the courthouse that day. And to see everyone sort of band together and help each other out, to me, was really exciting to see.
Was this in Cumming?
It was the courthouse right up in the city square. I believe it was 2006. Yes. Yep. So we had a person drive up into the courthouse, and he started shooting at deputies. And it was a big scene at the time. No. 2013. Yeah. So we had one of our deputies was shot, and people from inside the courthouse came to his aid, along with other officers and federal and state workers from all over came and helped us out there. So that was one thing that was very surprising, and it was nice.
Thank you so much. So I do want to acknowledge Mark Gonzalez. If you can just lift your hand up, he is running for Congress. Yes, Senate. Senate, and you have his wife. Georgia's 7th Congressional District. Yes, they've been attending most of our community events, so thank you for being here, taking the time out along with your beautiful wife. Thank you for being here. And of course, thank you to all of you as well for being here. Brittany, my question to you is, as a deputy chief in the district attorney's office, what was your first win and what made you feel you are in the right place?
Well, I came from the U.S. Army. I was active duty for 7 years, so it was a very big switch for me. When I came to the district attorney's office, the first task that I had to complete, you were actually part of, Nazeera, was the kickoff of the Conviction Integrity Unit event. So we are one of the only district attorney's office in the Southeast that has a Conviction Integrity Unit. What that means is we're going back and looking at cases that our office has prosecuted to see if the conviction is a rightful conviction. So DNA evidence that's new, testing. The first case that we found was Mr. Darrell Hall, who is now working for Tyler Perry Studios. He had a second drug conviction where he had approximately 10 grams of cocaine. Because it was his second drug conviction, his sentence was commuted to a life sentence. He did approximately 27 years for a relatively low amount of drugs. When we brought the case in front of the judge to ask for time served, the judge later told us that he kept on looking over the case. It took quite a long time for the judge, relatively speaking, to let him go. And we were nervous why it was taking the judge so long to let go someone who only had 2 low-level drug offenses that was serving a life sentence. He said he didn't want to make the wrong decision, and he kept on looking at the case because he thought this couldn't be right. There had to be something else. And then he never found it. So he was released from jail that day. We had the Conviction Integrity Unit event, which Nazeera is on our panel. And we're going forward. He's been doing great. We have 2 mentors assigned to him from our office. He's been reporting to work every day, and he received his first paycheck from Tyler Perry Studios last week.
That's great, and I'm so glad I'm part of your win. So it gives those confidences that you're in the right place. So Sergeant Blythe, my question to you is, what did you say to when I grow up, and has that come true?
I would say it came true because I've basically wanted to be in law enforcement most of my childhood. My grandfather retired as a chief up in Cleveland, Ohio. So following him in his footsteps, go Bucks. Following his footsteps was a dream of ours and my family as well, my younger brothers in law enforcement. So yes, I'd say a dream what did come true and becoming law enforcement. And I've been fortunate enough to work for Forsyth County for 18 years now.
That's so nice that your dream came true, and thank you for being here. Yes. Neeru, my question to you is, if the genie gave you an opportunity to address any challenge, either locally or regionally or from across the globe, what would that be?
I'd say stop violence throughout the globe, because there's just so much violence all over, whether it's for power, for money, for greed, whatever it is. I would just ask the genie to just go ahead and stop the violence across the globe.
Good thought, especially now. So I'm going to ask your husband the same question and see how you both differ.
I have a number that I could put on that list.
If you can hold the mic.
Literacy is one that's close. The income disparity is another. But I'm overweight, so I try to stay hungry, skip a meal, and I know how difficult that is. So the number one priority for me would be to end the world hunger. And I know it's very possible economically. We produce enough to feed everybody, but still, I believe 13% of the world goes hungry, and that's something that's fixable if we wanted to fix it.
Very nice. And what I saw from Jyoti and both of you is end hunger and eliminate child labor and end violence. So hopefully you all are able to put your efforts towards that as well. My first question today is to Brittany, and the last time we talked, District Attorney was here. He was surprised. In fact, when I looked at the statistics that he had in his hand, there was only one burglary in his statistics, one Indian American burglary. So during that discussion, nothing made sense for the reason. He's like, why are you guys freaking out about just one burglary? But after that discussion, things changed. He went and communicated with each of the police departments to find the statistics, and he understood why we are all talking about it and why it's an issue that needs to be addressed. What has happened since then?
So since then, you all met about a year ago, and then we met again on December the 11th. It was a struggle to reach out and dig in and gather all of the information that we could. I know that Mr. Howard was again shocked just last night. I went into his office to prepare for this meeting, and I presented him with the most recent stats. I think we got them from you, so thank you for that. But when he looked at them, he said, oh my God, they're absolutely being targeted. This is evidence of that, I knew that the problem was bad, but I didn't, again, even last night, he said he didn't know it was this bad.
And you can look at the audience.
Yes, I'm sorry. And so he immediately said, we need to get on the phone, we need to start making calls, we need to make an interagency task force. And so we had discussed a task force between the Fulton County community. We've been working with our community prosecutor. Lindsay, do you want to stand up? All right, this is our community prosecutor, everyone.
From North Fulton.
Yes, she's your North Fulton representative. So we've had our North Fulton representative really be hands down in the community. She has an office up in North Fulton where she works out of, and she meets with all of the chiefs of police on a very regular basis, and community members alike. You can always come to her office. And so Mr. Howard automatically wanted to know, how can we help? What can we do to ensure that we are involved in this and we're pushing this movement forward? And so we would like to find the funding from our Board of Commissioners to dedicate a new attorney that is 100% of the time dedicated to this task force until the problem is sufficiently addressed. So we will be seeking the funding from our Board of Commissioners, and we will do that with one attorney as well as an investigator. And so going forward, we want to dedicate all of our resources that we can to this issue to ensure that no one is victimized again.
Very nice, thank you. So we usually, when we use the word justice, we usually say smart justice system. Do you think the burglars or the gang are more smarter?
So we're seeing this across all realms of criminal activity. The short answer is yes. If you look at the evolution of gang activity in Georgia, prior to 2007, our office had 0 prosecutions for gang activity. Since then, it has tripled, if not quadrupled. So, yes, these activities go from a hub. You can just Google this and see that there are incidents of South Asian members in Texas, in California, in Ohio, in New Jersey, all being targeted. We do understand that it is 2 or 3 groups that may or may not be located outside of the Texas area. So yes, they are coordinated, and this is a very, very smart criminal enterprise, which is why our agencies also need to get smarter and working together hand in hand. I'll say what you've been saying that you're doing up here, sir, in your region is wonderful, and we're hoping to get to that point as well in Fulton County. We could work together better in Fulton County. We could coordinate, and we could link our information. The district attorney's office could assist with subpoenas, with wiretaps, in any way that we can be helpful, we want to be. And so I just want to encourage the police agencies to continue to reach out to us and to participate in our interagency task force.
Thank you. Sergeant Blysett, so thefts and burglaries are usually opportunistic actions, right? So they're mostly opportunistic. And is there a quick solution to it? How do we reduce crime? And also, knowing all that, what is the biggest challenge that your law and enforcement office faces? Not just yours, but Fulton County or any law enforcement?
Any jurisdiction is going to have issues with any type of crime, but burglaries in specific here, a lot of them are crime of opportunity, where they see something they like, or you got a nice car in your garage, or they follow you home, or whatnot. But these burglaries that we're talking about today are completely different. They're doing their homework, they're doing their surveillance, they're figuring out who works certain jobs, who owns certain businesses. And they are targeting their individuals, and they're doing a lot of their surveillance to be able to make sure that they try to hit their target at the right time. With that being said, with the work that we are doing to combat this, we're doing a lot of work. We're with Alpharetta, Johns Creek, FBI, Hall County. We've been meeting with them quite frequently, sharing intel, tracking certain groups, certain individuals, and like she said, they're going all the way out to Texas, all the way up to Michigan. We got groups coming out of Miami, flying to Utah, Colorado. We're sharing all this intel and trying to track them, to pinpoint them to every specific burglary we could charge them with. The more crimes we could charge them with, hopefully the feds jump on board, help prosecute them federally so that we could get them to serve them the most time possibly. In which collectively as a whole, I believe that this is going to work in the end. It's just, we're waiting for the stars to align like they did last night. With 4 individuals, getting good parameters, getting the community to interact, help us out, call it in, and everyone working together. I mean, that's the only way we're going to be able to put this to a stop or make it slow down tremendously.
Do you have a strategic coordinated plan?
We do. I can't go into too much detail with what we're doing with, the task force with the FBI and everything, but yes, we do. We've got plans set up on steps we need to take to get certain individuals in custody, what we need to do to further certain cases. We're missing certain elements for the district attorney to accept the case. So yes, we are working on getting those steps completed to be able to get those people held accountable for what they have done to the victims, not only here in Forsyth County, but Fulton and across the United States.
So you did mention they are doing their homework.
Cool.
Can you give us, because we're all here because it could be us, any of us tomorrow. Cool. How are they doing the surveillance? Like, how do they know this is an Indian, this is an Asian? How do they know I have cash at home or gold at home? Is it just the generalized understanding, or they've been following me, what business I have and what I do?
It all depends on which
and
group.
And you can look at the...
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
It all depends on what group you're talking about. There are several groups out there, several crews, and they're getting their orders from different people. So certain groups may be targeting business owners, other groups targeting technology workers or IT workers. A lot of their intel comes from the internet, social media, LinkedIn, what you guys post on the web, when you guys go on vacation, when you go out of town, what you drive, post pictures of your house, your cars, whether or not you have dogs, who all lives in your home. They are getting all this from the web, which is all out there for anyone to see unless you block it. And this is intel we've gathered through several different agencies, including the federal agencies. They just captured and convicted one major female that was getting a lot of their intel. And she said that she was put up in homes. She was, given all the computer equipment and the softwares and everything else, and she would just provide these packets. Well, we would provide the DA in reference to a case file, complete write-up of an individual, where they work, what they do, what their routines are, how much they make, you know, any pictures of jewelry that they're posting wearing on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, anything. They're making these folders and handing them out to those crews. Then those crews are doing their surveillance. A lot of crews are sloppy. Some crews are very professional. So, I mean, these crews are coming from different places. So it just all depends which crews are in town and where they're hidden.
Sure. So before we go to Larry for the next question, I just want us to thank Satish. Satish, thank you so much for, he's the owner of Sri Krishna Vilas. So thank you for the chai, your pakora, and the hall for allowing us to have this important conversation this evening. One last question before we go to Larry, because I think you just carry all the information we all need this evening, is Sergeant Blyseth. Are you asking us not to be on social media?
No, I'm not asking you not to be on social media. I am asking you to put certain blocks on your social media. Well, for certain people to only see what you post on social media, whether that be your direct friends and family and everything else. I personally don't leave anything open to the public. I don't want the public seeing my family, where I live, what I drive, or anything else, what I do in my off time. That's just me personally, but that's what I recommend to a lot of people. On LinkedIn, a lot of those profiles are set to private. You know, it all depends on what you guys want to put out there. If you want it open for the public, leave it open for the public, but that's up to you guys. I've done a lot of these speeches, especially in the neighborhoods, and I've been challenged before. What do you know about me? Well, they give me their name and their possible area of where they work, you know, what kind of profession. I'll come back 5-10 minutes later and I say, this is how much you make, this is a picture of your house, this is your address, and this is just using normal stuff on the web and giving them all this information, and they were amazed how much is just randomly out there. And anyone wants to do research on you, they're going to do research on you. It just all depends on how much you put out there and how much is blocked.
Sure, thank you so much. So Larry, the community is maybe the most powerful crime prevention program, the communities, right? You are a board member of the Johns Creek Community Association. It has been in place for a long time. What do you guys actually do or you know, have activities going on within the board members of HOA? Do you ever consider or discuss this issue of burglaries because it's targeting some communities but also an issue for you all to discuss? And how do you improve this community's infrastructure?
Thank you. Okay, so the JCCA, Johns Creek Community Association, has been around for about 10 years. We're a nonprofit 501(c) organization. We actually our members are the HOAs of subdivisions. So initially when JCCA was established, we would actually work with individual developers, commercial developers, residential developers, to talk about zoning issues, stream buffers, things that help maintain the value of your property. As Johns Creek matures over time, the zoning issues become less and less. And so we as an organization, in our charter, we have to reinvent ourselves to figure out what exactly we can give back to the community that's of value. We're still engaged with all the zoning issues, but as far as safety, we just recently put together a whole training program that talks about how to deal with issues within a subdivision as well as, you know, safety. So we're going forward with an educational seminar in different subdivisions, but it takes time, and our charter is developed based on the feedback from our members. So having events like this, we now have a better understanding or a deeper understanding of what is actually going on in this type of community, so we can target our training and our programs accordingly. My background is technology, 25 years in technology. Johns Creek, late last year, I'm sort of diverting just a little bit, Johns Creek, the city council adopted a technology that I think is fabulous. It's not an endorsement, but I dove deep into it. And the organization is in Marietta, and it's called Flock Safety. and I'm sure a number of people here have heard of it. And so I met with them personally at their office, and I asked the hard questions, the questions about the software, what it actually does. And it's camera recognitions within the subdivisions, within strategic points, to capture data about what is happening real time to empower the law enforcement to access that data real time to stop things from happening. So one of our areas that we're looking at as JCCA, let us educate the community, the different HOAs, about technology, embedding that technology into their whole solution besides just community watch programs. So there's a lot moving forward, but we have to work in sync with the agencies.
Very nice, thank you. And I'm going to wait for our HOA to inform us about that information. So I hope, and I thank you for doing the JCCA's work on educating the HOA presidents. So ultimately the information comes to us as well, the residents.
That's right. That's
Thank
right.
you. So the next question is for Officer Byers. Predominantly we have some Asian communities attending today, and from childhood we are told, officer, to stay away from the cops, to stay away from the courts, and but it's not advised nowadays, right? So we have that trust issue with the police. And what has Johns Creek done to avoid racial profiling? If there is a victimized person or someone who is not happy with the services provided by a specific officer, which I'm sure must have happened in all places, is there a grievance committee? Is there a place that they can go and complain about the officer?
Yeah, we have myself, I was promoted to the rank I'm at now about a year ago, but for the 10 years prior than that, I ran our internal affairs division. So what I did was oversaw the complaint process, if anyone had issues with an officer, how something was handled. We have a very open process. You can be anonymous with your complaints. You can file them. There's a phone number for that. There was an email set up there on the website, our app. There are a number of ways that you can address that. I think we have really, since the establishment of the department, had that on the forefront of our minds when we started the department 13 years ago, was we wanted a great open dialogue with our community, with everyone that lives in the community of Johns Creek, a very diverse community, which is what makes it such a great community there and here in North Fulton. So yes, so we have many different things that are within our policy. Supervisors do regular camera reviews. We all have got body cameras now. We've always had in-car cameras on a regular basis. Our supervisors pull cameras, watch different stops, watch different interactions, to not even wait for complaints that might come, to try to identify some issues that they see up front before it even becomes an issue. Our community-oriented policing section, Sergeant Kalish is here right now representing that. Community events, the different neighborhoods that we're in, the different dialogues that we have, I believe have gone to great lengths to address any of those problems, even before they become problems.
So many of the victims, especially the topic that we are discussing today, have this response, at least most of them. They say because this is targeted and it's not a general issue, so the police discounts the complaint. Has that happened? Do you see that, or you see this as as important a complaint as someone else?
Oh, absolutely. And I can tell you, this issue that we're talking about today has been on the forefront of our investigators, of Detective Rose, who's here today representing. He does all of our intel stuff with our criminal investigation division. This has been on the forefront of our investigations for several years. I mean, you can go back as far as, I was watching some videos yesterday, back as 2011 in London, where they were talking about this exact same thing. So this is not something new, and we've acknowledged that as soon as we started seeing those stats come in, and have put together, again, started working so good with Forsyth County, with Alpharetta, with the different agencies around, and so I don't believe that's been an issue. If it has, it hasn't been brought to my attention, but we have taken this serious from day one, put manpower into it. Detective Rose and I were talking yesterday, since we established the intel position, which this was largely driven by, he pretty much said 80% of his time since he's been in that position has been addressing and looking into these and talking to the other agencies around.
Very nice, thank you. I know Jyoti has a comment following your response, but Jyoti, the other question I also want you to address is your community more impacted with crime? I wanted to know that. And I know you are a victim of a burglary. How has that impacted you? Because I think you and the Vermas are the ones who are going to speak from the impact that it has placed on you. So please go ahead with your comment and also the response to the questions.
Hello. So this happened to me not recently. We were burglarized about 7 years ago in Cobb County. When this happened, and by no means am I undermining all your efforts and the sincerity with which you're pursuing these targets.
And can you all hear her in the back? Yes, okay, good.
But at a personal level, at that time, I was disappointed because the detective assigned to our case did not show up for a whole week. We finally nailed him down, literally, at a Starbucks because I was talking to somebody equivalent of your position at Cobb County, the Homeowners Association. Since then, this gentleman has been promoted and he has apologized from the bottom of his heart, no doubt, and he actually is one of my patients now, which is fine. But we had a similar meeting, just like this one, and it was a huge meeting in Walton High School. Over 500 people attended with the whole Cobb County Police Department, and same topics came up. This is sort of deja vu, where we talked about forming a task force where Kennesaw knows what's happening in Marietta, where Alpharetta knows what's happening in Johns Creek. Each department is communicating with the other. There were talks about why is this not a federal team task. I do not know the right terminologies, but I know you understand what I'm saying. Since this was not Atlanta kind of a crime, it's all over the US. So I'm actually a little bit surprised that we are talking about that we just creating a task for now, which I thought was in place 8 years ago. So to me, if the district attorney did not know the magnitude of this problem, I'm going to be candid here, I'm disappointed. That year, there were 83 burglaries, all Indian homes, targeted at the same time. And I do understand that you guys have to deal with a lot of things, but to me this is 8 years or 7 years down and I'm still hearing the same thing, which I think the progress I'm sure is great. Those guys, by the way, were caught too 6 months down the road. And the reason I know that some of them were the ones who came to my house because they found our GPS in their possession. So yes, progress is being made, but I think more collaborative action is needed because to answer your second question, what does it do to you? I'm sure, like you said, you've been a victim and so have other people. It's not the monetary loss, it's not the emotional things you lose, it's a loss of the sanctity of your house, it's a loss of your sense of security. My home did not feel like home. I felt like I'm living like in a cardboard box that I come home to. When you drive home, you think you're away from the streets, you're away from crime, you're in your home, and you feel like, it's after all just a cardboard box. So that feeling was a very sinking feeling. I hope nobody has to go through that in their lives. Is there anything else you want me to do?
I was going to ask, is crime a problem where you live?
So I live in East Cobb, which is a very uppity part of town, very safe. My neighborhood has 440 homes. Each house can be visualized from the other part. So no, I did not expect any crime. But there are parts of East Cobb which merge towards Marietta, towards west of 75, where there are people with nefarious activities, I would say. But these people, the ones that burglarized my home was a group of 8 Colombian men. I saw their pictures. They were renting apartments. I don't know if that will help you. They were renting apartments very close to Piedmont and Roswell Road. That's where they were operating out of. So eventually some things got unfolded, but the collaborative efforts, I think, need to be heightened.
Very nice, thank you. So the next question is for Officer Marsh, and hopefully it's working. So it's wrong for us to expect that the police is universally going to solve all the crime, right? And that's where the community policing comes up. How important has community policing been for the city of Cumming, and why is it important?
So I've been the city of Cumming police chief for a little over 7 months. So my time there has been a little bit limited, but I have found within our city, all of our neighbors do a really good job of watching out for each other. And the reality is that the police can't be everywhere. Even if we're fully staffed, even if we have everybody working, there are only so many police officers to go around. And so it's up to you guys to help be our eyes and ears. And generally speaking, some of the great tips, some of the great arrests, some of the great cases that we've made over the years, maybe not with the city of Cumming, but when I worked with the sheriff's office, have come from really astute, heads-up people who are paying attention to what's going on around them. They may see cars that don't look right. They may see people that are a little out of place. They may, when they close up their shops and they're going to the home and they're going to the bank, they pay really good attention and they look around and they notice what's happening around them. And if they see something that's out of place that they don't understand or they think might be wrong, they let us know. That's the biggest part of that equation. So many times after we go after the fact and we talk to people who've been the victims of burglary or even the victim of some sort of person or violent crime, they tell us, yeah, I just felt like something was wrong, or I saw a car that just really didn't look right. And so many times they don't take the next follow-up step to call the police. And that's a really, really big deal. And I think lately, certainly within the last couple of years, that's compounded because people will air these things over social media. They'll talk to their neighbors about it. And there's a ton of information out there that doesn't ever get to us. And that's a really big problem for us because when you guys let us know what the problem is, and specifically where it is, that gives us a good jump-off point. We can start there, and we can start working backwards. And guess what? Maybe it was a delivery person. Maybe it was somebody that just had their car broken down, and they were waiting for somebody to come pick them up. How great is that to know, though, right? And so that's a big deal for us working within our community. We have to have the eyes and the ears, and more importantly, you have to take that next step to call 911. I think a lot of times it's been programmed into us since we were little kids. You only call 911 if it's an emergency. Somebody's bleeding, somebody's dying. If there's a true emergency, that's the only time you call 911. And I think that's a mistake. I think you guys need to call us anytime you see something that's out of place, something that you feel like might be an issue, and we can help address those things.
What is the best strategies that you have established to strengthen your relationship with the minorities?
So our big issue, when I first came over, we had 7 police officers. The number one thing that we have tried to do in the last 7 months was hire more people. To be perfectly frank, we needed more folks. The City of Cumming Police Department leaned very heavily on the Sheriff's Office, essentially to handle anything other than a simple car wreck or a report. They did all the investigation. There were no assigned investigators. We didn't have anybody that was really specifically put for crime prevention or even crime investigation. And so in the last 6 or 7 months, we've hired about 13 people, which has been great. We have assigned investigators. We have a couple of people who speak Spanish, which is, we have a large Hispanic population in the city of Cumming. And so to help bridge that gap with our Hispanic community so that we can speak the same language. So that's the biggest thing that we've done in the last 6 months is just to get more people so that we can provide a better service for our community.
So what are some of the barriers for your police department to establish good community relations? Some of the barriers do you see, or do you think there are no barriers?
No, the barriers are almost always the input from the citizens in the community. We try very hard. We teach classes at the police department. We try and put information out on our Facebook page. We tell our officers to get out of their patrol cars and go meet with people and talk to business owners. But at the end of the day, the challenge for us is to get information from the community. And so we work very hard and very diligently to reach out as best that we can, but we are only so many people. And so the real barrier is with people who have information and they feel like they're bothering us, or they feel like it's not important enough, or we don't really care, or we don't want to know. That's the real barrier for us, is to get the information out to everybody. We do care, and we do want your information. And if you see something that isn't right, please tell us about it. And so my big fear is that people think that either we don't care or we're not capable of helping. And so for us, everything we do in our community environment is wrapped around telling people we do care. Your problems are our problems. And so many times I hear folks tell me, well, nobody was dying, nobody was being murdered, so I didn't feel like it was a big deal. Well, you ask anybody that's been the victim of a burglary how big a deal that is. And we do care about those things, and we do want to provide that kind of service to our community. And so I think for us, the biggest barrier is to let people know, we want to know what's bothering you guys. And events like this are certainly a big help for us.
Thank you. And you don't have to answer this question, Chief, but do you think the law enforcement should represent the community, the people working in law enforcement should represent the community in diversity-wise?
I think that helps. Sometimes we have to pick who we get as applicants, though. We do our best to reach out to everybody, and we do want a diverse community within our law enforcement groups, absolutely. But at the end of the day, our law enforcement works for the community. So no matter what color we look like, no matter who we are, it's our job to provide a service to everybody, regardless of what they look like and where they come from. So even if it's not somebody that's Indian or from the Asian community, that doesn't mean that we can't help or that we don't care.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yes. Sheriff's office is hiring for sheriffs. You're hiring for deputy sheriffs. Okay. What is their eligibility? Should they have the minimal?
So to be a deputy sheriff, you have to be a minimum of 18 years old, have a high school diploma or a GED, and you must be under Georgia law, be a U.S. citizen.
Okay, U.S. citizen, about 18,
High school diploma.
high school or GED. Awesome. Great. And what does the salary start from?
That's a fair question.
Deputy Sheriff 1 starts at about $46,000 a year with a very comprehensive benefit package, and a Deputy Sheriff 2 means they've been through the police academy, starts at just around $50,000 a year with a very comprehensive benefit package.
And you train as well?
Complete training.
Okay.
So we are actively looking for people from the Indian and Asian community who have an interest in that. We would love to talk to you if you know anybody that's interested in applying.
And he
Come
or
see me.
And he or she can be a Fulton County resident. Yes, they can be a citizen, of course. Okay, sounds good. So did you have something to follow up? Okay, great. So now let's go. So you already gained their interest. You achieved your goal. Congratulations. And so let's. No age. No, I don't think so. So the next question is for the Mishras, and I'm going to ask you together because I think towards both your input, it'll help us a lot. Tell us what happened, and I think you can help us prevent, because you've gone through it, rather than, I know we have so many experts here giving us step by step, but you've gone through it, so you've gone through so much more resources that exists out there. But what is your message to others? And if you can speak to the emotional and the financial toll that it put on you.
So this was the evening of August 10th, day before my birthday, and I was driving back.
You're a Leo!
Right, yes.
Yay!
It's a birthday I'll never forget, the day before.
Wow.
So I was in the car driving back from a function, and you had asked earlier whether it's an opportunistic crime. I'm convinced it was not. Somebody had been monitoring us. My son, who's sitting at the back, the reason he's here is because that was the one day after 6 months, that Saturday evening, that we insisted he go out with us. Otherwise, he's home playing video games mostly. But that evening, he did go out, and at 9 o'clock, somebody went up and from the back door, broke the glass and went in. The alarm went off. We were seeing it all on video. So I was driving and the alarms went off. We were hoping that it's a false positive, which we get sometimes, but then I saw the video and we saw a couple of men from South America, it seemed, with masks running inside the house. And so a little bit of panic. Wife Neeru called 911. They asked a number of questions of us, which we were getting, a little nervous, a little angry about. Why are they asking where we are, what's the color, and we are telling them, look, let's send somebody as soon as possible. but they knew what they were doing. You can see on the video if you play that they are looking for the master bedroom. They find it, they go there. I guess they found more jewelry than they expected because they took out a pillowcase and then dumped her entire drawer into that. And 7 minutes later, and we have lots of cameras. So I have a technology background. I've got 8 cameras, and all of those cameras have caught not just these people, their masks, but we see the car. One car drops them, another car comes back in precisely 6 minutes, picks them up. Cops reached in 12 minutes, and I think that's their key. They know that it's going to be 11 to 12 minutes. They're very comfortable. We had new phones, new computers. They did not touch it. I guess if they took the phone, that's one way you can trace them, but they're smart. So they are a step ahead. The cameras and the technology and the alarm does not bother them. They probably knew it's going to be 10, 12 minutes, very comfortably out in 7, out of the subdivision. If Neeru wants to add something, I want to talk about the experiences or the ramifications of this, not just financially, emotionally, but logistically. That's where it has affected us.
Sure. Neeru?
Yeah, and what I would like to add is, like, one of the detectives here pointed that they do their surveillance. They do, yeah, they kind of follow you. They know what you're doing. They know your background, and so they have their math set right. Like Mahim just said, they know that the alarms are not going to stop them. They have precisely 5 to 7 minutes to get in and look for what they want, and they do not go around looking at the house for anything else because the alarm is off. They know that the cops are going to be there within 10 minutes. So like he said, the camera actually captured them opening each door of the room, looking which is the master. They just get into the dresser, whatever they had, they just got it all and just ran out. So they did not get into the closet, not in the basement, nowhere else, just in and out. And I think it's more than financial, it's the emotional ramification, because like Jyoti just said, it's like, somebody getting into your space, your private, something, a place you call home, and people been there. It's just nerve-wracking. It's just emotionally devastating. Even till today, like Mahim travels a lot, and when I'm with Aman alone, it sometimes is like, oh my God, what if somebody gets in? That fear is still there. It hasn't been too long, but I don't know if I'll ever be able to get over that fear, ever. And one thing that impacted my life after that incident was, I used to be in the corporate world, and I did leave my job a month later. I won't say this was the whole sole reason, but this was a big part of leaving my job and just staying home, because I was scared, of him being alone. And ours is a very small neighborhood. There are just 9 houses. So he would actually walk home from the bus stop by himself and be home, alone for an hour and a half. And it was nerve-wracking for me. So I'm home now with him. And yeah, it's just emotionally devastating more than anything else.
I think Mahim.
I hope they have a database of homes they have broken into. So I at least I tell her, we are safe for another 5 or 7 years. So I'm cognizant that, as long as there is economic disparity, you can catch this gang or the next gang, but there's going to be another one that will spring up, and that's a never-ending kind of process. But and maybe it's because of numbers, but I didn't hear in Cobb County, very similar to Jyoti's story. I've never heard back, even today, about. I've read in the papers that similar modus operandi, they got caught or they got shot. But it would help if somebody told me that, well, these are the people, because you can see behind the mask. You can actually see his shoes. He's got Nike shoes and so on. If somebody closed that loop for me, I don't expect anything back. I'm sure that the very next day, everything they took was in a pawn shop. But if somebody told me, well, even if 6 months later that they've not been caught, that would help. I'm just second guessing here about whether they're still running around or whether they are one of the people that you caught last night or before in the 6 months.
Thank you so much for letting us know how it has been. I'm sure it's devastating even for me to hear that. I'm really little bit scared now. But Nirun, Mahim, this question you don't have to answer. Will you be planning to become police officers at some point?
Yeah, I'm out looking for a job, so I'm contacting you. And I'm in East Cobb, but you said there's no, like you don't have to be a Johns Creek resident, right? Okay.
Sure, yes. Jyoti, go ahead. Yes. Yes. So, okay. So we're going to have the input from the audience later. Do you want to wait till then, or is this important? Is it relevant to the discussion right? Okay, please, we'll just give few seconds and then we'll head to the panelists.
Is it working?
Yes, I think it's working.
Okay. Now we are here in the USA since 1950, and many people are here from there. I have seen many developments in minorities, Pakistani and Indian. My father was born in India. I was born in Pakistan. So what I have seen is we have gone to the Senate, we have gone to the finance ministry, we have gone to many technocrat things from minorities, but we have not put our impact on the law enforcement. Unfortunately or fortunately, my own gas station was robbed in Bartow County, and the sheriff's people were coming for the investigation, and then my son thought that he should go for become a deputy sheriff, and then Mr. Freeman, he hired him a deputy here, and I think we should all emphasize on our minority youngsters to go into law enforcement, so we can know everything about it.
Thank you so much for that comment. Jyoti will take your comment.
I have been conflicted about this issue personally. On one hand, I feel that all of us should have the right to keep whatever we want to keep in our house that we've earned through hard work. There should not be constraints. On the other hand, I feel that bad behavior cannot be rewarded. So when these people come into our homes and they do find gold and they do find cash, they are rewarded, handsomely rewarded. That's an incentive to do the next robbery and burglary and the next and so forth. So we can talk to the law enforcement, but we have a personal responsibility also. So if you know that these kind of crimes are happening, and don't keep those things at home. Don't invite them to your homes. You have to take ownership of this problem too, because it's not just the loss of money, like we all have been emphasizing. It's a loss of everything that you hold dear, like your personal space. So if we stop carrying these things in our homes, I think after 4 or 5 next burglaries, it will be de-incentivized. They will not want to do it again. So you don't agree with that?
When he retired, he was an assistant police commissioner. I grew up around policemen. I have no fear of police. I grew up believing that they're doing their job. But from what I remember hearing my father say, he worked in Bombay in the 70s through the late 1990s. If any of you have been in Bombay, you will know his name, because they dealt with every particular kind of crime, but at the same time, their networks of finding the people and having informers was so tight. Without technology, they were able to do things that we are shocked. 2 years after the burglary happened at our house, our detective has not contacted us or told us anything. It took them a week to show up when they found a handprint on the wall and didn't know what it was. So I don't think, and I'm an author. I have a public profile. I'll address something about you guys talking about all kinds of, how much information you put out there. How are we supposed to live if we're not being who we are authentically part of this culture? Yes, I understand what you're saying, but to a degree, I think that there is so much missing on the other side that loop, the fact that that's missing, is what is propelling everything else.
Sure. So Nandita, thank you. We'll continue that. Sure. So I think Johns Creek Police Department had some issues. So they have an emergency. District Attorney, do you want to join us? Because the next question is, Sheriff.
I have about 5 more minutes. So
That's fine. Yes, sure. Because the next question, I would like for all the sheriffs and the police officers to chime in. I want to talk about the communication, the campaign, the messaging, how important it is, because as a prior Fulton County Chief of Staff working downtown, living in Johns Creek, I could clearly see the messaging differences. What the messaging was for South Fulton didn't work in North Fulton. What was the issues in North Fulton didn't work in South Fulton. So do you think in each of your department the messaging about this specific issue differs, or is it the same, or are you all coordinated? Because you're reaching to, it goes back to what Nandita said, a culturally sensitive community.
So I'll start.
And then I'm on.
I think when we're talking about Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Forsyth County, the North Fulton and Forsyth County, guys, you really don't know when you're crossing over from Forsyth County into Johns Creek or Alpharetta. We look alike, we taste alike, we smell alike. Our communities are very similar. So I think the message goes well across those. I think you have a point when maybe we get to South Fulton or we get to Clayton County or one of the other counties, but Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Forsyth, which primarily is the area that most of you are probably from that are sitting here, I think we're so similar with each other that the same messaging. Just recently, a week or two ago, we had Deputy Sheriff Amadani put out how to prevent burglaries, how to protect yourself against burglaries. Thursday, I told you I had 20 influencers or leaders in the Indian community in to talk about this. And one of the discussions we had is how do we get a broader message to our Indian and broader Asian community? And they had some great ideas, by the way. Sergeant Blyce has been working on this for 4 years. City of Cumming, I don't want to take anything from you, David, but Chief Marsh, since he got there, they didn't even have a Facebook page. He's jumped on board. Excuse me, I realize I'm doing this to you. He's jumped on board. I'm talking with my hands. And has created a social media platform where he's pushing out a lot of information from the City of Cumming. They're being very forthright and transparent in what they're doing and how they're doing their stuff. And so I think you're seeing that, but again, you may not follow our Facebook page, you may not follow our Instagram or Twitter, but you should. And the reason is because we're trying to put that information out. I hear some things that make me shake as a sheriff when I hear a detective didn't follow up for a week. I know it wasn't my detectives. I know it wasn't the City of Cumming, and I know it wasn't Johns Creek. That's not how we normally do business. It doesn't mean we're perfect. I say all the time, we'll never be perfect, but we strive for excellence. And excellence is our expectation. And so when we have, Derek can speak to it. Do you want to speak for just a second to what happens if we have a burglary, what our response model is?
Yes.
Sure. Any type of burglary like the ones we're speaking about tonight, I automatically send out the on-call detective, our crime scene unit, and I typically go out as well. It's all hands on deck. We take these serious. We're getting tired of them. We've been dealing with these for so long with very little evidence, very little things, leads and everything to go on. We're trying to not only bring a positive solution to the victims, but to us too. We've been dealing with this way too long to have as little effect as we have, but we're getting better. The past year and a half alone, we've got a total of 6 individuals in custody doing these Indian agent style burglaries. We are moving along, we are getting the intel, we are sharing it with the FBI, these metro Atlanta jurisdictions and everything else. Not only that, when I send my individuals out to canvass the neighborhood, get videos, get the ring videos, the nest videos, all these videos that you guys have throughout your neighborhood, even the flock and everything else, we're out there talking to you guys. With your information is how we are solving a lot of these crimes, whether it's Indian and Asian burglary related or something worse or less. We need you guys. Like I believe Chief Marsh said, we're not everywhere at once. But without you guys giving us the intel we need, we wouldn't have been able to bring our burglaries down 33% last year. We're down that much. You guys are our eyes out there. We get our intel from you. Last night, if we did not have individuals inside the neighborhood saying they went that way, or they're through the woods, or they dropped this, or something to help us by calling it in, we wouldn't have as much evidence as we do on all 4 individuals that are currently sitting in our jail today. So we need you guys as much as you guys need us, and we're here to serve you guys as best as we can. But if we get a case, whether it's today, tomorrow morning, whatnot, once it hits my desk, my guys have that business day to make contact with you. Whether that's in person, on the phone, we need to contact you to make sure the report is correct, everything on the property is correct. And we have all the information needed to further that investigation.
Sure. Chief Marsh, and then I want Brittany to respond as well. What is the messaging you are giving, and is that enough?
So I think before I answer that, I'd like to address her point, and I think she makes a fair point about law enforcement oftentimes doesn't work together as well as they should. And so I think in our little community here, Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Forsyth, and I'll add the city of Cumming to that as well, I think we do as well a job as really anybody in the metro Atlanta area. Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Forsyth has a task force set up for narcotics and vice activities. I know that I meet with the sheriff and the major pretty regularly about any kind of crimes that we see that might be crossing over jurisdictional boundaries. One of the things that we just don't do well when these people come in from other states is very, very difficult to get help from people in Chicago, from people in Memphis, from people all over the country, and sometimes that does hinder us, and that's not an excuse, but it is an explanation. It's very tough sometimes to get coordinated response the farther away from this area that you get.
I'll just add that it's really frustrating as a victim to see the units not working together and everybody pointing the blame about who needs to be contacted. There were so many people involved in about 3 weeks, over 3 weeks, just for our burglary. And we were just frustrated because we didn't have the answers. And this takes it to Fulton County now, because I asked Mr. Howard, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. And of course, he was shocked. I tried getting a hold of his office. I still have to hear back.
Sure.
And these are the things that, as a victim, what happens is it's great to see different communities working together and, okay, this is my town, this is my town, this is my town. But if there is another burglary happening in the towns around, North Fulton takes over a bit. It includes Roswell. I have tried contacting Roswell so many times. They've not talked. They're not here. And that's what's frustrating. Cobb County, you're here as a resident. Is Cobb County participating in these efforts? The fact that communities don't know that this is an issue, our neighborhood starts freaking out when I say, hey, what's that weird car out there? Because they're like, oh, we live in a safe town. We don't need to worry about it. So that's part of the messaging that I have a question for you is how good of a messaging is it if communities just don't feel or don't hear about this more often?
And I think that's a fair complaint. At the end of the day, I only have control over my city, and the sheriff only has control over his sheriff's office, and Johns Creek only has control over their police department. I can't speak for us in this area, though, and I feel like we do a really good job with that. And I know that that's frustrating if you live in other places, and I'm not saying that we always get it right and that we're perfect all the time. But I have worked in Forsyth County for about as long as Sergeant Blythe has, and I feel like we do it as well as anybody. And I think that sometimes when you see the Gwinnett counties and the Cobb counties, when you see the fractured cities, when there's 8 different cities and then a city PD and then a county PD and then a county sheriff's office, when you have all the overlap, that sometimes that is the response is, well, no, Marietta's doing it. No, Cobb County PD is doing it. No, Cobb Sheriff's Office should be handling that. And then you get a lot of finger pointing, and I can imagine that's super frustrating.
Sure. So thank you. I'll just go to the district, and then we'll come to your comment, Larry. So the task force.
Yes. Well, I want to say the messaging is not where it needs to be. It's not. We need to get better, and I know that it may be disappointing to hear that we need to get better, but the point is right? So we're the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. There are no other district attorney's offices here, and that's not to throw blame on them, but that's just to reiterate the point. The information's not shared, right? So our office currently, when Mr. Howard was brought into this, was prosecuting one burglary against South Asian individuals. Currently, it's the same. So our job is to take the information from the police and prosecute the case. That is where I think the deterrence is going to lay, and that's where we'll make a difference, is getting harsh sentences and penalties for these people. But the cases need to get to us, and we can't stop and just do our job. Our job is to simply, right, to take the information and to prosecute the cases. But we're not happy with that because that's not what's working. We are not getting the information fed to us. We are going to have to go out into the community and get it ourselves. If you have an issue with Roswell, if you have an issue with Alpharetta, if you have an issue with Johns Creek, please, I urge you, that is why Mr. Howard has community prosecutors. Your community prosecutor is sitting directly behind you. She will come to you, and she will get you your case information. It's not good enough right now, and that's the point of this task force. And no more looking back and saying it wasn't done well. We sincerely apologize that it wasn't done well in the past for all of law enforcement, but we're going to get it right in the future, and that's why we're here now. That's why we're creating this task force, and that's why we need to urge you, hey, Cobb County, where's your district attorney? Will you sit on this task force? Hey, bring anyone you want that you think will benefit your case. East Cobb, Cobb County, DeKalb, Roswell Police. We want them to come.
Should we have like a hotline where anybody, regardless of the county lines, can just call and you guys can get data for all the things that are happening?
That's an absolutely good idea. I would lean on the police force for that because I think that they have those technologies, but that's something that our task force wants to explore. So I know there's frustration, and I just want to say that's why we're here today, and we want to do it differently.
So the task force, is it only for the interagency collaborative, or does it also include the community members? Because if you have all these people here on a Saturday evening, you already have the audience to request them to join the task force, maybe not all, but probably with requirements. And
I think it's very important for the community to be on the task force, but let's not forget that really the agencies need to get on the task force and figure out what they're doing. But in order for us to figure out what we're doing, we need you to tell us what you need. So
sure.
yes.
Nazeera,
Go ahead.
Derek, you've got a meeting coming up. How many agencies do you have coming to that meeting?
Do you want to use the mic?
That meeting we currently have, it's roughly 10 or more agencies, and that includes federal agencies coming to that meeting.
So my point is, we've already put together 10 agencies, and all due respect to my friend from the district attorney's office, their job is to prosecute once we catch someone. It is not their job to investigate crime. That is law enforcement's job, and we take that very seriously. And as Sergeant Blythe said, we're really frustrated, and that's why we were so excited last night to finally catch some of these guys. We're one of the few agencies that's actually caught. We're now at 6 that we've caught. But to that point, our job is to get information out to you, be transparent about what's going on in your neighborhoods so that you can help protect yourself and your neighbors and report things to us so that we can do it. Our job to work with the district attorney's office, whether it's in Forsyth County, my district attorney, or any district attorney's office, certainly there's collaborative efforts we can make, but their job is to prosecute once we catch someone. It's our job to catch them and build a case in collaboration with the district attorney so that we get the evidence they need to make sure they get convicted of those crimes.
Larry, you had a comment.
Yes, just a quick comment. As a community organization, JCCA, we're trying to communicate thoughts and concerns about various community issues that are out there, whether it's a business, a land issue, or it's a security crime issue that's going on in an area. If crime occurs, because of the security and the privacy concerns, it's not pushed out very often. It's little snippets are sent out. But if you're feeling you're not getting enough attention to a situation, you should reach out to places like the JCCA in Johns Creek. Forsyth County is also establishing a JCCA type organization, and I know Roswell, Brookhaven, they all have them. And what we can do is push those messages out. Our representatives are sitting at city council meetings every month. We know all the council members. We can actually be a voice of your concerns and just an advocate of you. We can't solve the problem. That's what these gentlemen are here for. But at least we can bring it to a different level. There's 55, 60,000 people in our community that we represent. It's a pretty good hammer. Not that you guys need a hammer.
Yes. So the question I have is, this particular issue that we're talking about this evening, who is to blame? As community members, are we at some point, it's time for us to change our behavior, promote behavior change?
Okay, who is to blame? The crooks are to blame. They are absolutely to blame. These are evil people. This is not the kid in the neighborhood. This is not the drug addicted person who needs help. These people are making a living off stealing from you. They are 100% to blame, no one else. They need to, if they actually did the crime, they need to go to prison and sit there so that they can't harm anyone else in our community or make you feel unsafe, whether it's in Cobb County, Fulton County, Forsyth County, Gwinnett County, or anywhere in the state of Georgia. We all have a part to help better our own communities, and that is to get better. That's to report suspicious activity. Chief Marsh said it so well. David's a smart guy. Sergeant Blythe has said everything we're putting together. There's no way we're going to stop crime. Crime's down across the board in Forsyth County. We dropped 33% in burglaries. That sounds great. It is great. It's phenomenal in today's world, unless you're one of the people who got your house burglarized. Then that number doesn't mean a whole lot to you. Okay? If your house hasn't, you love hearing that crime's down in Forsyth County if you live here. So do I. But there was still 186 homes who got burglarized. Okay? So from that number and those things, it is all our responsibility, I believe, as a citizen of the state of Georgia, of the United States of America, and in our case, Forsyth County, it's all our responsibility to look after each other, to be good human beings to each other, to try to help each other. That's what we can do, but make no bones about it. You can tell I get frustrated with that. It is nobody's fault but the crooks.
Oh, Sergeant, I have a follow-up related question.
Sure.
So, we thank our stars that the day that we were burglarized, our kid was with us. Now, I sometimes wonder if that's just coincidence, or was it that somebody was, in fact, I was having this argument yesterday with my friend. Is it that for the 56 months before that he did stay home, that somebody was watching us, and is it just coincident that one person that he was out? So apart from the financial loss, the most important thing is to ensure safety.
Sure.
And so we take him with us everywhere. He resents it. So is it that there is a network where somebody is constantly watching you to the point that they know that all three are out? Or is it that they will take the chance and come in, and then if somebody's in there, then there may be a shootout or they tie you up? Because that's is more important than the jewelry loss or the cash loss.
Sergeant Blythe, do you want to take
There's
it?
different crews out there across the United States. And I explained to a couple of y'all before this meeting, some of these crews are home invasion crews. They don't care if anyone's home, they're coming in. They don't care what kind of security system you have, how many locks on the door you have, what kind of business you own. They're going to follow you. They're going to come in, and they're going to commit a home invasion in which you're tied up, and they're going to steal what they can. Now, the crews that we in Forsyth County, we don't have any, let's knock on wood somewhere, we don't have any home invasion crews up here. We have just the regular burglary crews that will hit empty houses. We've had 2 incidents where someone was home, they noticed someone was home, they ran away. They're not interested in hitting a house here in Forsyth County that has someone home. They've done their homework. Every house they have hit related to these Indian Asian burglaries are empty. So I can only answer for Forsyth County on that question. But yes, statistically, they're out there. Fulton County's Alpharetta, I know they've had a couple. I don't believe Johns Creek may have. I know Gwinnett has. They've had the home invasion crews hit them in the past. I don't know what they've done with those, with their intel. We're dealing with the intel of these crews that are hitting the empty homes. They're all different. So we are sharing through the different Metro Atlanta agencies with the intel, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, but it leads to another, even a scarier prospect, that if somebody's, unless they've got a camera inside my house, how would they know that on this one occasion everybody's out?
Through intel across the United States that we've gathered, whether that be locally, federally, or whatnot, there's crews that will follow you to work. There's crews that will follow you to church, follow you to the grocery store. They will get your pattern. A lot of people go to the same coffee shop every morning, go get breakfast every morning, go to lunch every afternoon. They don't change up their routine. Once they figure out your routine, they're going to continue to follow it. So they will have somebody watch you go get your coffee, go to the grocery store, whatever. While you're out doing that, they're on the phone with their buddy, 7 minutes or less, they're in and out of your home. They know you're with your wife, your family, and everything else. They know whether or not you have dogs. If you set your alarm. We've got some crews that will low crawl through your house on their hands and knees. Now, granted, they're all gloved up and everything else, so there are hardly ever fingerprints left on scene, but they will try to bypass your motion sensors by crawling. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of our victims don't set their alarms. They pay for an alarm, but they don't set it. You pay for it, set it, guys. That's what's going to trigger when there's glass break or there's a door broken open, whether it's on a silent setting or an audible alarm. It's up to you guys, but you're wasting your money if you don't. More than half of our houses that have been burglarized in Forsyth County, they've had an alarm and it was not set, and they haven't used it in months.
That limits their time.
Correct.
The invaders get in, yes, that limits their time to go and look around.
They've been on camera. If they hear an audible alarm go off once they breach that door, they're running. So they're not, granted you are a victim, they broke your back door, but they have not made full entry, gone and ransacked your master bedroom, bathroom, everything else. They ran away because there's an audible alarm going off, knowing the cops are being called, whether it's a gated community, if their private security is coming as well. There's always quick responses. They never know where we are. We're not everywhere at once, but we may be closer than what you think.
Sure, thank you. So let's go to Officer Marsh. Let's go to the comprehensive solutions. You all are working on getting these criminals behind bars. What are we as community supposed to be working on? Apart from telling you guys that, hey, I see some suspicious activity, but I'm sure there are other messaging that you would like for the Indian community to follow before it hits our homes.
Sure. In my opinion, this is a multi-pronged defense. So there's never just one thing that you can do not to become a victim. I think we have to do our job well, the DA's office has to do their job well, and then the community has to do their job well also in order to make this harder for people. And typically what we tell our folks is you have to make your house harder to break into. One of the things that I think is worth noting, to piggyback off Sergeant Blythe, is the 7 minutes that people have to break into your home and leave. That's not a 7-minute response time from the sheriff's office or the police department. Oftentimes when your burglar alarm goes off, it calls a call center, and then they will try and call somebody else, and then if they can't get a hold of somebody, then they end up calling 911, and then it's got to go through dispatch. So by the time that we get a phone call, we're 3 or 4 minutes behind the curve. And they know that. And so they know they have a couple of minutes, and then typically, I know in Forsyth County, I haven't looked at the statistics in a while, I suspect that we're under 5-minute response time to an alarm. The other problem is that 93% of our alarms are false alarms. And so we get ate up with false alarms. So my recommendation to anybody to try and not become a victim of a burglary, having an alarm system is good. Making sure that it works well is even better. Making sure that you don't have a ton of false alarms. Making sure that you're not overwhelming our system, because law enforcement officers are having to handle false alarms all over the county. It wears us out, and we just spend time bouncing from one to the other all day. The other thing you can do is, if you have valuables, keep them locked up, put them in a safe, hide them, make them inaccessible, so that people, if they're in your home and they know your alarm's going off and they understand that they have a limited amount of time, anything you can do to make that harder for them is going to be better for you guys. Now, it doesn't prevent the burglary, right, but it may prevent the loss, or at least some of the loss. And so my recommendation is, do everything you can to make sure that you do things that are going to make it harder for people. Like Sergeant said, if they want in, they're probably going to get in, right? But having a better secure door that is harder to kick open. There's plenty of other locking mechanisms, but if you make your door really, really tough, they might just break the window, right? So there's no 100% solution, but there's a lot of different things that you can do. Make sure that your bushes aren't covering your windows. An audible alarm, I think, is a great idea, because now your neighbors hear something, and maybe they start looking out the window, and then they see the car that doesn't belong, and that prompts a call to 911, whereas the burglar alarm is still working its way through the system before they're going to let us know. So those are definitely some things that you can do. Have an alarm, make sure it's working well, make sure that you make it harder for people to steal stuff from your house. To me, you know, a barking dog is a great deterrent as well. I know that doesn't work for everybody, but having something in there that's going to scare people oftentimes will help limit. Now, sometimes they may just open the door and the dog will run out, but having a dog that barks is definitely a deterrent. Yes, sir.
All this breaking in and taking things from people. What about self-defense? Does anybody think about that? Like, all these weapons out here, you know, you can take care of yourself. You know that, right? You know,
self-defense.
Self-defense is really a rule, and if you take one out, hey, you know, self-defense. Out of 4 or 5 people that's trying to come in, I'm pretty sure about 2 of them grow up and try to do the right thing, see their friend. You know what I'm saying? Handle how you handle it.
Sure.
Maybe even all of them.
I'd like to think that in Forsyth County, maybe that's one of the reasons we don't have the home invasion crews. Maybe they're trying to stay away from people because they're worried about folks carry guns and they have guns and they know how to protect themselves. I'm not trying to suggest that everyone should go buy a gun and that's the end-all be-all solution. However, you know, when people are being burglarized, typically there's not someone there to protect it. And so that's one of the reasons that I think they choose that on purpose. They don't want to get hurt. They don't want to get shot. They don't want to get locked up. Because if you confront a person, now you've got a person that's got a phone. They may have a 911 call within 60 seconds instead of 4 minutes. And so they're not dumb about this stuff, and they use these things to their advantage. And that's definitely something that is of concern for sure.
And that's to what Jyoti had earlier said. That may be a reason why Indian homes are targeted, because culturally we don't keep, and they know that as well.
Sure.
We don't have guns.
Thank you. So what I did 2 years ago, or when I started hearing about all this, my goal that my mom gave long time ago was just in our closet, not even in a safe box. So the first thing that I felt that I could do as a responsible citizen was took it to and opened up a safety box in a bank. Are these the messaging we should be giving in unison just for this particular issue? And is that already, are you giving it out, or is anything else needs to be added? And we have like how many members in your group, Larry, in your JCCA? How many board members, how many HOAs?
HOAs, well, there's, in Johns Creek, there's about 210 HOAs, which represents about 70,000, 80,000 people. There's about half of that within our organization today.
So you have 100. Now, all you need is that messaging, so you can push it out to all the HOAs, and those are the messagings we are looking for along with the other activities that you do. Go ahead, Sheriff.
The best practices
yes.
that has been developed through the years from the law enforcement side, we can push those messages.
Go ahead, Sheriff.
So certainly anything you can do to share the message makes it broader. We have been telling, on top of, as Chief Marsh and Sergeant Blythe has said, not only are we talking about alarms, cameras are phenomenal. Cameras have helped us solve a lot of these crimes now. But on top of that, we've been telling people, look, if you want to keep this stuff, if you have substantial valuables in your home, maybe you should invest. And I wish that I could tell you you didn't need to, because part of me says you should not have to lock your doors. You should not have to lock your cars. You should not have to worry about somebody stealing your stuff. but then I wouldn't be doing my job because we know that's not reality that we live in. So maybe you should go invest in a $400 or $500 gun safe. If you have, we've had some people with losses of over $100,000 worth of cash and jewelry. You can go to Academy Sports, you can go to Dick's, you can go to any of these places. I will give you an example. I have a gun safe in my house. I don't mind saying. My gun safe was a little more than that. It weighs about 850 pounds, and it is bolted into the concrete floor of my home. If they get that, I think they earned it, because it's going to be really hard for them to get it. And it will take them about 3 hours to cut it open. Okay, it'll withstand 1,200 degrees for 2 hours. So my point is, maybe we've not seen any safes defeated. That does not mean that that could not happen, but certainly to the point that our Chief Morris said, making it harder for them to get to that. So don't go buy the little Sentry safe that fits in your closet that you can pick up and put under your arm and run away with, but maybe having one and hiring somebody to bolt it down the floor. And if you're going to be out of town for a significant period of time or anything like that, either a safety deposit box, which is very safe, obviously, or put that in there. They're not going to get through those things. So I wish I could tell you don't need to do that. But if you're keeping $100,000, $200,000 worth of valuables in your home, I think it's prudent to do that to help protect against a loss.
Go ahead, Jyoti. Yes.
I strongly feel that. I strongly feel that, because our safety and the safety of our families and children is also our personal responsibility. So by keeping these things, and these people know our practices, how during Diwali time, during certain holidays, the sun is coming in my eyes. So these activities ramp up because they know that we will have these valuables in our home. So we have to take a personal account. I'm sorry, I can't talk with my. So we have to stop keeping these things at home, and not give them, the incentive to come and rob our homes. So I think that's something to be considered, because when my house got robbed and they found all this gold, that was such a great reward for them to go to the next house. Maybe yours was after mine. You know what I mean? So we have to do something to protect our homes.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you to a certain degree. I mean, you don't want to keep like $200,000 worth of stuff in your house. But what's happening is nobody is talking. But the first thought that the officer who came to our house said, oh, they're probably just going to melt it away.
That's
right?
exactly what I was told.
They're probably going to melt it away. You know what my mind went to? Why aren't the police looking at where they're going to melt it? And nobody had an answer for that.
Nandita, what you've been through, I share the same experience.
No, I understand. I understand, but here's what I will
She's
caution
just looking
also,
for solutions.
Yeah. That I am looking for beyond what, we are asking people to change their lifestyle. Okay, whatever I may be wearing, whatever little it is mine, it's my hard-earned money, and all of that. If that's your life, then that you should make plans for it. But if they even come into your house just because you're Indian, even if at this point I don't have anything because they stole it all.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't know that.
What are you going to do about that?
So there does need to be some legislation change. So right now we don't know in these strings, because hopefully this arrest will give us some more information of what they're doing with the gold. But there is such a thing that hopefully all the police agencies use here, called leads online. And so the police should, when they come to your house, as soon as they come, they should put documentation regarding the stolen objects into leads online, and then the pawn shops, secondhand dealers would do that as well. Now, if it's melted down, that's an issue, and that's something that our office is looking at, proposing legislative change that would prevent the secondhand gold dealers from accepting melted down gold in certain terms, right? So there is legislative change that would help with melting. We do have sheets. We did bring sheets in the back that if you could use to take pictures of your items and describe and put markers, that way when the police come, they can upload that onto Leads Online as well. These are all very small solutions, and they won't get at it. Okay.
We had actually started just doing a little catalog. Okay, this grandma gave us this. Let's keep that a record, and we took a picture. I gave that to the police. the detective or whatever their rank was, why do you have pictures?
Wow.
That is a dumb question to ask a person who has just been robbed or burglarized, okay? Indian jewelry does not come with a serial number.
Right.
It is impossible to catalog it. It's impossible. We actually had pictures with things weighed, as in this is the Tara weight.
Yes.
And they were not able, they were not even interested in saying, we are going to call these places right now and put this on a hot alert because this has happened a few hours before. That's what is frustrating from a victim standpoint. As a system, I understand that there are certain things that you can and cannot do in time and this and that and whatnot. But when as a lay person, if that's where my mind is going, why can't we find the place that melts gold? That's my question.
Sure. So go ahead, Sheriff.
So I'll ask one quick question. Sergeant, of all the burglaries that you're aware of in Johns Creek, Alpharetta, and Forsyth County, not a single thing has been pawned. Is that correct?
Not around here. In Texas, yes.
So we have found a few things because we have looked. So I hear your pain and I hear your frustration. No one on this stage can answer for what another agency did or should have done or could have done. But for instance, maybe we have learned over those years because we are looking, we are putting the stuff in leads online, we are looking at our local pawn shops, we are looking at those things. And the fact is, a lot of these folks we know are leaving the country, and whether or not they're able to get through customs with some of this stuff is part of our thought process to see if that happens or not.
Sure. So my question is also to the extent that, again, coming back to the messaging, right? Do you ever see this getting resolved? Because I think she said 8 years ago, and you guys are still talking about forming
Same
a task
discussion, same solutions. I still don't see that this problem has transcended county lines. There is no central, we have to probably escalate it a level above. You have a more bird's eye view of all the activities that's happening in the metro Atlanta area. Because 8 years I see that we're still talking about Forsyth County has done this. We don't know what Cobb is doing. We can't speak for them. And we are all living together.
We're all residents, we have Asian Americans.
So I will tell you the difficulty that we have is, and I'm very blunt spoken, I make no bones about it, this is happening not just Georgia, not just nationwide, this is happening outside the United States as well. We have had victims who were Iranian, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, Indian, Turkish, and I'm sure I'm missing a few. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head some. Sergeant Blosh could probably name every one of them. It's not just that, but I think Major Byer said before he had to leave for his emergency, he was watching a video of this happening in London a few years back. It is continuing, and it will continue. It's just like saying that convenience stores will never get robbed, because we know convenience stores have been robbed for 25, 30 years since convenience stores became a reality, right? They still get robbed today, although in some places much less than others. Will we ever completely solve it? I don't know the answer to that. If I did, I would certainly offer it. But what we have to do is get better at the way we combat it, better at the way we're aware of it, better at the way that we communicate together with it. And all we can do is go from there. To stop a criminal, the only thing that stops a criminal, okay, is them fear of getting caught or getting caught. For a criminal like this, who is doing this for monetary gain, okay, they're not going to get better with their drug addiction. They're not a young kid who somebody's going to turn around. These are hardened career criminals, usually gang related. The only thing that's going to stop them is scared that they're going to get caught or we catch them. And so those are the things that we have to work together on. I wish there was a way that we could go to the source and stop this. And there are some types of criminal activity that require social skills, require social intervention. This is not really one of those. This is a more hardened thing that we have to attack very forcefully.
I have a question I'm sorry.
District Attorney's
Yes, hey,
Office.
yeah.
Yes, Brittany.
So what is stopping us from escalating this issue to out of the hands of just local police departments and making it more of, I don't know what the hierarchy is, but more of like an FBI-ish issue?
Nothing, and I believe that they are currently working with Homeland Security and the FBI. But again, that's, and I'm not sure how many agencies, but it's all of the agencies working together with Homeland Security and the FBI.
Because the analogy of the convenience store robbery is not applicable here, because that's, yeah, I know, but I'm saying this is like home break-ins.
Homes, families.
So our challenge I'll tell you, the challenge we have right now with the federal investigation or the federal prosecution is a burglary is not a federal crime. And when you look at federal law, burglary is not a crime. But having a gang-related nexus that is going from state to state to state gives a potential, and that is what we're working with the FBI with, that if we can create a RICO case, or we can create an interstate commerce case, or an interstate crime, where they're going back and forth with an organized group, then we may be able to get that to a federal crime. Look, our district attorneys, if we can catch these guys or present them a good case, they can put these guys away themselves. Okay. The thing is maybe we can get to the masterminds by using the federal, and that's what we're trying to do.
So the counties, Fulton County's district attorneys engaged. How better can you get them engaged in your efforts instead of duplicating efforts? Is that a possibility, even though it's two different jurisdictions?
So the agencies that they work directly with, which in this area would be Johns Creek, Alpharetta, Roswell, Milton. That's the immediate area that we interact with on a near daily basis. Again, when they're getting something or they need, if we're looking for a wiretap or we're looking for subpoenas, they're going to be reaching out to their district attorney's office, just like I'm going to be, or Sergeant Blythe is, or Chief Marsh is going to be reaching out to the Forsyth County District Attorney's Office. And if we end up making what is an organized crime case, both those DAs will be working together. But again, I remind everyone, I don't want anybody blaming the DA's office, because their job is once we catch them.
Right. So I know we're going to come to a Q&A session just before. So the next one question I want to ask both the moms here, because this was asked by the attendees, at least 2 or 3 of them asked while they registered, and then I want to go for 30-second closing comments from each of you before we hit the Q&A session. So the question that was asked for Neeru and Jyoti was, should I leave my kid back home? This was asked by a couple of attendees. And the second question that was asked was, what should we do about our glass door in the back of our house, in the Porsche?
So as a mom, I would say no. Don't leave your kids behind and alone at home. But again, being a mom of a teenager, it is difficult. They resist. When it happened, he was like, yo, Mom, I'm never, ever going to stay home alone. But guess what? 4 months down the road, he still wants to stay home and play his video game. But as a mom, again, I would say if you can, just take them along with you, because you never know who is watching and when are they going to get into your house. The glass door aspect, because yeah, that's one thing that's really common in these burglaries. I would say if you can, please do replace those glass doors, because that's a very easy way for them to enter, and that's what we've done. I wanted to have an iron door. I couldn't get one, so there's just a little bit of glass at the back door now, and it's mostly iron. So yeah, if you're able to replace that, I would say go ahead and do that.
Jyoti.
I completely second that. So this happened to me 8 years ago. My life changed. My 2 girls were at the time 10 and 4. My husband and I don't ever go out together without
the kids. Oh my gosh, that's scary. I'm so sorry.
So we always either take them with us or one of us stays back.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'd give a contrarian view to both. You can replace it with an iron door. They'll come in from 3 glass windows next to it. You can put 3 iron doors there. If they want to come in, they can. And the other question about leaving, it's like saying I'm not going to drive a car because there are accidents happening. So my view is I'm ready to move on. And if they are going to come back, that's going to be unfortunate, but something you have to deal with.
And I guess that's why the question was for the moms and not for the dad. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Their emotion level is different and moms are different, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. We want to do
And
a
Jyoti,
quick,
I feel you and I hear you, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And sorry, sorry,
Yeah.
Jyoti, and thank you for letting us know. 20-second closing comments before we get to the Q&A from the audience. And we're going to end it probably 5 to 10 minutes late because we started at around 4:20.
Well, looking at from JCCA's perspective, looking at everything that was talked about here and some of the concerns, personally, I believe the solution has to be holistic. It has to be communications from the community to the law enforcement and back and forth, because with JCCA, we're here to work with the community on different concerns that you have. If you need to try to communicate with us, let us know what's going on in your community concerns, and we can help with that voice to the cities and to the law enforcement. We're here to help you. Reach out to jccahome.org. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Larry, for your time today, and hope you can address this with all your board meetings, this issue. Go ahead, Sheriff.
So I will tell you that we have made great investment particularly in our Indian community in Forsyth County. We have worked really hard. We have a citizen advisory board. I have 2 members of influence from the Indian community who are on my citizen advisory board, so that I hopefully get more direct messaging of what it is that the Indian community or our broader Asian community is looking for, concerned about, those kind of things, because we're trying to open those lines of communication. You have our commitment. We have spent thousands of man hours, hundreds of thousands of dollars to combat this very issue. We're not stopping. We caught 4. That's just 4. I'm waiting to catch 4 more. Our men and women are dedicated. You should have seen the excitement in their faces last night that finally we got them, because they are as excited as the homeowners were, because we don't want anybody else feeling this way. We don't want anybody else feeling unsafe in your home. As hard as it is, do not let them win. You live your life. You trust your life. You live it, and you live it full, and that is your win over them. Do not let them dictate their criminality change your life. And I know that's an easy thing for me to say, but don't let them win. You're better than that, and you're stronger than that. I'm going to ask my leave. I have a 6:30, and I'm going to be about 20 minutes late, too. So thank you for letting us be involved. Sergeant Blythe is going to stay. Thank you again. Please reach out to us if we can be of any help to you.
Sure. So, Sheriff, we just have a small memento for you. Panditji, if you can just hand it to him. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, Sheriff. Jyoti, go ahead. The 20-second closing comments before we head to the Q&A.
I think I've said what I had to say. There's really not much I can add. The only thing I would say is we need to escalate this truly to a level above the lines that we've divided our city into, because we haven't really made much progress in the past 8 years. I'm so sorry not to undermine anything that you all great people have been doing towards this cause, but we need to make a little bit more headway.
Thank you. You made it sound real for us. So thank you for letting us, sharing your experience. Go ahead.
On behalf of the City of Cumming, I just appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to hear and understand the problems that you're having within your communities. Again, one of our jobs is to do everything that we can to help serve our community, and we can't know what those things are unless we hear it from y'all. And I appreciate you guys taking the time tonight to be a part of this and to let us know what matters to you so that we have an opportunity to serve you guys better.
Thank you so much. Brittany.
Working with Nazeera, we hear your concerns, and we will work to get all of our agencies at the table. Nazeera and District Attorney Paul Howard will have a next meeting, and we will invite everyone to come to the table, including the FBI Atlanta Field Office.
Thank you. Go ahead. ahead, Sergeant Blanchard.
As Sheriff Freeman said, if you guys go to our Facebook, there's a perfect video that was just made. Our star deputy, he's in the back of the room in the video. It gives you guys great guideline how to protect yourself at home, out in the public, what to do with your property. Please get online, take a look at that video, and first and foremost, see something, say something. If it's out of place, call us. As Chief Marsh said, we don't care if it turns out to be something small to the delivery guy, or it could be the criminal that we're looking for. You guys don't know until you call us. So please call us anytime.
Neeru?
Thank you. I'd just like to thank Nazeera for inviting us today. This has really been helpful, and thank you to all the agencies for working together and trying to keep us safe. I just hope in future, in the days to come, the communication can improve, and instead of us reaching out to the cops and to the police officers and trying to figure out what happened to our case, they are more proactive and they can tell us and keep us updated on what's happening, and that's my wish. But thank you so much, Nazeera.
Thank you, Neeru.
I just want to say it seems Fulton County and Forsyth seem to have a much better department than so. Please reach out to COP and tell East COP to take a leaf out of your book.
So there was a police officer who was supposed to participate, but I think they are very short on staff. So maybe that's one thing you want to ask for more funding for for your local police departments.
Yeah, it's they haven't even seen the video. I think that we've got, or I think we have a clue of the car as well. The car that dropped them and picked them, but I don't think anybody has reached out. So
definitely, that's something you should work. Yeah. So we'll talk further and see how you can take it to the next step. So we'll take, before we get to the Q&A, I want to make sure I thank Pandit Ji. Thank you so much for helping us out this evening, for setting up the room. I want to thank Swapna Kaswa, please, thank you so much for helping out this evening. And Sergeant or Officer Hashim. So he is Officer Hashim. So thank you. So you are one of the sheriff. You just joined the sheriff's office in Forsyth County Sheriff. So you understand more culturally about all these issues. So they can reach out to you anytime as well. And we would like to take questions at this time. We'll probably take 4 questions just because of the interest of time. And some of our panelists are going to stay back to answer your questions. And we'll go with Mark. The second, first one, Mark, and then yourself. Yes.
I have a comment and then a question.
So hold on, hold the mic so people can hear you. Thank you, Trey.
I have a comment and then a question. First of all, I'm very, very pro law enforcement. I think the men and women that protect us every single day, putting their lives on the line, deserve our respect. I also honor immigration. But what I did not hear today is whether the 4 people who were apprehended last night, whether they were here legally or whether they were here illegally. In the state of Georgia, this is a big issue. We spend $2.5 billion a year on illegal immigration. For a family of 4, that's $1,000 a year. That's also theft, if you think about it. So that's my question. Were they here legally or illegally?
We're still currently looking into that with our Homeland Security liaison. I have not gotten back with him yet this evening. He was out till 4:30 this morning. So I will be reaching out to him after I leave this meeting and get back to the office.
We'll keep you all posted. Clifford, yes.
Thank you to everybody for all the information that you've shared. Really very impressive. It's the first time I'm focusing on this problem. So the first question that comes to my mind is gold the only unique issue in this problem? Because there might be multi-million-dollar homes. Aren't they burglarized? Isn't there anything of value inside those homes that the gold has become the only thing that targets us?
Gold and cash, and that's why we are here mainly, gold and cash. Neeru said none of her computers or any of her cell
Yeah.
phones were touched.
Yeah, so we had a MacBook Pro, we had like 2 laptops, we had 3 phones sitting outside. None of that were touched. They just went into the dresser and just got whatever jewelry they could. Thankfully, most of them were imitation jewelry, which looked like gold. So I'm happy about that, but they didn't expect so much jewelry anyway, and that's why they got that pillowcase and they just filled in whatever they could. But yes, to answer your question, yeah.
So I'm a guy, it's easy for me to get away from gold. I don't know, is that something that we can do to take our Indian community and gold apart? That we don't, is that something that we can do somewhere there?
One of the messaging that's being given, that was given here, Neeru, correct me if I'm wrong, is to place your gold in safety boxes in the bank. Don't keep it at your home. But how do we convey that message to the potential burglars?
So, Nazeera, honestly, many times it's not possible to always keep all your gold in the safety deposit box or at the bank. Because, you have these small little earrings, chain that you want to wear, every once in a while. So my preventive measure is to not keep it at obvious places like your dresser, because that's what they reach out for, right? So keep it at a place like somewhere in your closet, maybe one purse, or a box that they can't even think that, you could have kept your gold, but yeah, you got to remember that you kept it there. Because many times we keep it so safe that you forget where did we keep it actually. So that's one preventive measure that, I would take. But since I've been the victim, I don't have any gold at home at all. And I don't know when am I going to bring that gold back home, but yeah, that's one way to kind of prevent people from getting it and making it difficult for them to get to your gold.
Great. I know Venkat had an answer. So we'll go with Navdeep, Rekha, and then Venkat. Go ahead, Navdeep. And then we have one more after Venkat. Yes.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say thank you, Nazeera, for organizing these kind of events. And I know that you raised a very good, what I can say, concern that, okay, in India, right, we are kind of like, whatever the way the police is, but kind of like they are having more intelligence, right, and they know what people are doing or where the thieves are coming, what burglars are doing, kind of like they have a tap on everything, right? But on the other hand, right, I know that, okay, most of us, I want to say thank you to all the police or the Homeland Security, whatever departments. I'm not even familiar with all the departments and sheriff's office. But one of the main reasons, okay, people immigrate to US is safety of life, okay? That if I am in a trouble, right, I can just call 911 and within 3 to 5 minutes, right, I know that the help is here. Okay, and that is one thing, right? It's not that, okay, we cannot earn money back home, or it's not that, okay, we don't have relations or properties and all that, right? One of the main reasons for people to come to this country is safety of life. And I want to thank you so much for doing all that service.
Thank you. Thank you. How many of you all, I want you all to raise your hands, honestly, brutally honestly. How many of you all know your neighbors, front, behind, both the sides? The whole neighborhood.
Yeah, me too, because we have 9 houses.
Okay. But that's something we should start considering. Go ahead, Rekha.
First of all, Nazeera, thank you very much for organizing this and putting in so much effort, and thank you to all the law enforcement officers. My husband and I, we disagree on one thing always, and there's an argument, and I get frustrated and I just let go. Because this is just one thing where he just argues very little. So I have no say in this, but I want your honest opinion. I read a lot on the Nextdoor app that there are these people who knock on the door and they want to see who's answering the door at a particular time and to see who else is there at home. So I always tell him, if you're not expecting anybody, please do not open the door. He tells me, we live in a very affluent area, in a very affluent neighborhood. He tells me, Rekha, if you didn't feel safe living here, why did we buy this house? And he always gives me an example that if you are in trouble and if you are knocking someone's door and if that person doesn't answer the door, how will you feel? You don't know who's behind the door, what that person's need is. I'm living in a safe area, I will answer the door. So, and then...
So you have disagreements there.
Yes.
Let me
that
ask.
is the only thing we disagree on.
No, there's more.
This is a major
One
thing.
of
And
the
then,
major.
you know, I get so mad. And even my children, my 24, Mom, Dad is right. You don't have to be so paranoid. You're living in a good neighborhood. Come on, get over it.
I want Chief Marsh to answer that question. What's the best solution for that?
So how you and your husband handle that is between you guys. I don't want to jump into the middle of that. Here's what I can say. Forsyth County has one of the lowest rates of personal crime or violent crime in the whole state of Georgia. We have very, very little true violent crime, and on top of very little true violent crime, we have very little crime that's stranger to stranger. Just a stranger coming and robbing another person. That doesn't happen in our community very often. I'm not saying it never happens, but one of the things that always concerns me is when people get scared about something, they'll put it on Nextdoor, they'll put it on Facebook, and they talk a lot about, we had to just this year investigate several different Facebook posts where people said that they were almost abducted by someone in one of the parking lots, and they weren't true. And people spread fear oftentimes about things that they just don't know. And so I'm not trying to suggest that that doesn't happen or it's never happened, but what I am trying to suggest is there are a lot of people online that are looking for attention, and they will post things that just aren't true or they're not corroborated. Now, they may have actually been scared, but imagine our surprise when they don't ever call 911, right? And when we go pull videos and we start looking at things and we see that it was really something that wasn't what they made it out to be. Now, that doesn't mean they didn't feel scared or threatened, but oftentimes I think one of the downsides to the social media aspect is people can spread rumors, they can spread fear, they can spread all kinds of other things that just isn't really accurate. So, again, how you guys choose to answer or not answer the door, that's totally up to you guys. But we live in a community that has very, very low rates of violent crime, and that's because our law enforcement is good, that's because our communities are together, and they really watch out for each other as well. So, I hope...
Which is already happening. Yes.
As long as we can get some good police officers, then we're good.
Okay. I saw Venkat. Venkat, did you have a question? And then one more person had a question. Okay.
Nazeera, thank you so much for organizing the event, and thank you to all the folks on the panel. My question might go to you, Sergeant. When you're talking about the size, you're saying that there are gangs and groups. Do you have a size that you think that this might be, whether it's here in Georgia or nationally? That
it's all over the. I'm sorry. Finish.
That are targeting these specific communities.
These specific communities, they're moving all across the United States. We have tracked certain individuals that we're trying to get enough probable cause to take those warrants on for certain incidents, certain dates, certain times. So we're seeing movement from Texas, California, out to Atlanta, up to Michigan, to Virginia, D.C. And like I said, we're working with D.C. FBI, Fairfax, Virginia, Houston FBI, so a couple agencies out with Houston, all throughout that large L shape that you see there, and passing the information along on the vehicles, who's renting them, phone numbers coming up, and when we're doing certain search warrants and stuff like that, and we're getting certain ideas of individuals of being in certain areas. It's just not enough for us to take those warrants. It's just it's just shy of that point for our DA to say, yes, I'm good with that. But we are tracking certain individuals in certain crimes. They are moving. They move so that they're trying to avoid being caught. When they are caught, or some of them are caught, they get 4 or 5 more people to join that group, and they just go to a different area. And they just keep moving around so that the less chance that they're caught by us.
How many gangs?
I don't want to say that we got 100 different gangs out there in reference to these individuals targeting Indian Asians. Do we have multiple hundreds of individuals that are targeting these across the world? Yes. It is an enterprise. If you look at it, it's just like anyone else out there continuously day and day shoplifting from stores, knowing that they get put it on Facebook Marketplace and sell it every day. They're making money. It's their way of breaking the law. So yes, there are hundreds of individuals out there targeting these specific types of burglaries, yes.
But she's also got a comment.
I wanted to add, so the Fulton County District Attorney's Office did create an individual gang unit. So, and this isn't on point with the burglaries, but it's a good analogy. So what we saw was a rise in gang activity around 2007. Some people attribute it to Hurricane Katrina. But so since then, studies show that we went from very just neighborhood street gang, low-level street criminal activity to a national model, and then now we've even gone to a third, so it's hybrids of national models, right? So one case that I was referring to that's not related was we recently prosecuted the MARTA gang slaying. And what we found out was there was a gentleman that was killed here in Georgia by a small sect of a gang. It's a United Blood Nations gang. It's called Sex Money Murder, and it's here in Atlanta. And so it's an offshoot of the broad Blood Nation, right? United Blood Nation. And so this case in particular shows that they're very organized and they're very sophisticated. So this person was killed in Atlanta, and the case was just tried. You can see it on the news, because he was a witness in a case in California against members of the United Blood Nation. So what they call the OGs reached out. They travel often. They put a hit on this. This particular person, because he was a witness in California, set up a drug buy. Unfortunately, he was a low-level drug dealer, and when he came to that drug buy, they terrorized him, they sodomized him, they beat him, murdered him, and shoved him in the back of a car at the MARTA station. But that is not related to burglaries, of course, but it is to show that these agencies are working together. The gangs are getting smarter, and they're working, from California to Georgia to have hits. So.
Yes. So let me take a question from Venkat, and then Anil, and then Mahim. Yes.
Yeah, quick question. Were there any convictions so far? Even one?
Convictions. So convictions means your office would go to the Forsyth County DA, but since the Fulton County DA is here, she can tell you probably they did.
I actually don't know the numbers.
Yeah, I mean, that is something, right? This has been happening for about 15 years. I
Yes.
know for myself, and I don't know how much longer it's happening nationally, internationally, and there is not even one conviction.
Right.
That is something I know we have, with due respect to, all the law enforcement, I think it is also something the law enforcement, in my opinion, failed in this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Definitely a room for improvement.
Yes.
Do you agree, Sergeant?
Well, and I'll say, that just goes to show the district attorney being surprised with the numbers, because the numbers that are in our office, right? So we don't have right now cases to prosecute, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's just the cases that get brought to us. So cases that are brought to us, we will prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. And that's not to say that the police aren't doing their job. This is yes. So what we know that they are very high-level criminal activities, but I'm sure the Forsyth District Attorney is very engaged and ready to prosecute these four, hopefully.
Sure. Go ahead.
That is correct. 4 of those arrests that we had were last night, so we're still in the early phases of getting them case files to the DA and everything else. 2 that are still sitting in our jail, range all the way back to 2018. One of them, they're sitting there with holds. They are illegal from ICE. So we are trying to get those cases prosecuted federally because they have returned. So we are working on getting those pushed forward to go forward with trial and everything. Now, yes, I do know of other jurisdictions getting great convictions, and federally and locally. I just hit the news, I think less than a month ago with Chaka, the main one up in Ann Arbor in Texas. I believe it was FBI up in Ann Arbor with their violent crimes unit, prosecuted her and her group, and her face and name was all over the news, and they all were found guilty of what they were doing. So yes, there are individuals being convicted of these crimes out there in the U.S.
Okay, so I just, before we go to Anil, and the last question, someone raised their hands. Okay, Mahim, it's funny that you're the audience and you're asking us questions.
I'm in the audience because now I have a specific question that
Sure.
I want to ask.
We'll come to you. Hold on. So I want to thank, so some of the Chai and Just Chats are possible because of the leadership, Rajan Luthra, Rajan and Vivek Furtado, if you can just get up and raise your hands. So Chai and Just Chats are also funded by Vendorship. It's a business that helps make Chai and Chat happen. So thank you for allowing us to make this happen continuously. Vivek, thank you. Rajan, thank you. Anil, go ahead.
Thank you. Since my name was called out 3 times, I'll have 3 quick comments. The first one is a public service announcement on behalf of the law enforcement, namely, and you can substantiate that, the county sheriff office offers a service of audit. They can come and audit your house and premises. So we've taken advantage of it. Most other people should too.
Sure.
You can share some more comments. So as a prospective victim, I want to ask you, where do burglaries stack up in the order of crimes? So in a given hour, given day, given week, you have a murder, you have some other crimes being committed. Where do burglaries stack up? So they may be low in the order of your pecking order. That's why maybe perhaps you're not able to respond as quickly or get all the answers. So
which order is burglary come under?
So if there's a murder in a given hour, murder, sex crime, drug bust or something, and then a burglary, or whatever that pecking order is.
So you asked me what the priority of a burglary
Right.
would be.
Yes.
Priority of a burglary would be pretty high. We have different units here in Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. Our major crimes unit works everything person crimes. So if you have a murder, a sex crime, or anything else, our major crimes unit is going to work that. If you have any type of theft or financial crime, property-wise, that's going to be my unit. So that's made up of 11 different people. So we work those crimes day in and day out. If you have a narcotics crime, that's going to be handled by the task force that's Johns Creek, Alpharetta, and Forsyth County, that they go ahead and investigate. So any type of theft or white-collar financial crime is dealt with by my unit, and we take everything as the same. There's no difference in your burglary to someone else's burglary or someone else getting scammed out of a crime that we can investigate that's white-collar. We're not going to prioritize. Yes, may we work a little bit quicker if we got a lot more evidence on this case before it fades away? Yes, I'm not gonna lie to you. If we got something that we could jump on, make an arrest, and do something right then and there to bring a positive solution, we're going to be all hands on deck jumping on that. But each individual detective has a caseload, multiple cases that they work day in and day out.
So we just have 1 more minute to finish
Lastly,
this.
just a comment or a recommendation. Have the law enforcement people considered hiring some of these criminals on their staff?
I can answer that. No.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was
So
a simple
my
question.
question is,
Mahim, go ahead.
when
Yes.
when we were robbed, Cobb County told us we were number 23 in the county, and I've read that there's 70 odd. Has anybody even attempted to get together all the evidence that probably exists within 100 homes? We have a picture of the car. The other 22, somebody may have a license. I mean, we talk about federal, FBI across, but if you just get the 100 people that have been robbed and get the evidence that each one has, you may have enough to have a car number plate, for example, just between them. But I know Cobb County has not done that, so a suggestion is costs $500, put a website for anybody that's let the evidence at least get there, so you can see the person's contour behind the mask, but maybe somebody else got a better image from a different angle. But
Sure. Mahim, I think that's a great suggestion. I don't know if it has been done. I'll let you decide, but probably finding the commonality of how and why, apart from the gold and the cash, would really help to see why were they targeted? Did they use a Uber just the day before, or did a cleaning service attend their home, some particular cleaning service? So maybe that's something for you all to consider. But we are in the end of the session, and we do have the chai, we do have the pakoras. Please help yourself. And panelists, if you're interested, we can definitely catch up for dinner right after our session. I know many of them want to shake your hands. And so apart from that, we have our next chai and just chat session on March 29th. March 29th, and the topic is on women and cultural differences and how women have improved since many decades ago. So join us for March 29th, and I would love to thank each of you for attending. I'd like to thank the panelists, Officer Larry, Jyoti, thank you for making it real, and because I think the whole discussion was about what you fell through, how do we prevent that. The District Attorney's Office. Brittany, you have Siri and you have, tell me, I forgot. Lindsay. Siri and Lindsay, can you just wave at them? So you are working at the District Attorney's Office. Thank you for being here. And Sergeant, definitely thank you from the Sheriff's Office. And the Mishras, Niru and Mahim, thank you for joining us. Thank you.